Prepare to have your health questions answered here on Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley, owner of Binkley Healing Center in downtown Ventura. Now, here's Dr. Todd.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley, board-certified doctor of non-force chiropractic and practitioner of functional medicine. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the benefits of exercise. Last week, I did an entire show on some of the lesser-known benefits of exercise. But before I'm going to come back to that, we're also going to review a number of things that have come out in the medical press lately, like the connection between certain diets and your risk of colon cancer, how to reduce your risk of high blood pressure, and the connection between the gut microbiome and hormones throughout your body. And time permitting, maybe an update on the horrors of trying to get your quotes, air quotes, health insurance company to pay for the health care you need and what you can do to get around that. So last week I did an entire episode on some of the lesser known benefits of exercise, and I got far fewer messages and questions than I usually get, which didn't surprise me, because one of the reasons I don't talk about exercise that much on this show is because I figure most people already know how important exercise is. We hear about it often enough, but I've changed my view on that. I think most people probably don't really know how important exercise is and how to make exercise easier to get for whatever health conditions they're struggling with. People that you know, do you exercise regularly? Do the people you know exercise regularly? What stops you or people you love from getting the exercise maybe you already know you need? Well, I am a non-force chiropractor, and one of the most common reasons people can't get exercise is because of limited mobility and pain. And there are lots of ways, even if you've quote-unquote tried everything else, there are lots of ways to relieve tension in your body and re-educate your brain to eliminate patterns of tension. So that's a new thing. Most people have not heard of that. A lot of the musculoskeletal pain, when you have aches and pains throughout your body, a huge percentage of that comes from patterns of tension that build up over time in your muscles and your joints. And you can disrupt that pattern very quickly with a traditional chiropractic adjustment. You can get a deep tissue massage to force that tension out of your muscles and your joints, and that feels amazing for a little while. In my experience, it often doesn't last as long as we might hope it would. And that is because the pattern of tension that builds up in your muscles that underlies much of the pain, the aches and pains that people suffer with that maybe come and go but just never go away completely. These things are due to patterns of tension that build up from poor posture, stress, driving a lot, sitting in front of a computer all day, poor sleep posture. A whole host of things contribute to this pattern of tension that just builds up over and it gets reinforced over and over, sustained periods of time, years, decades. And there's no flashing red light saying, oh, there's tension building up in your hip rotator muscles or your psoas muscle or the muscles in your neck and upper back. But when people come into the office with those complaints, that's what I so often find. And it's great to get a deep tissue massage or get a traditional chiropractic adjustment to get quick relief from things like that. But so often those things just don't last because they're not addressing the fundamental problem, which is that a pattern of tension has built up. What does that mean? It means your brain, normally, if something is tense, if a muscle is tense in your neck, in your back, any part of your body, your brain is aware of that and will do something, usually when you're sleeping, or if you have some stretching routines that you do, that helps. But normally, you build up tension in muscles when you're working, when you're doing things that require your muscles to work, and then you sleep, and you rest, and you get up the next morning, and that tension is gone. Well, over time, especially as we get older, some of that tension from the day before is still there when you get up the next day. And some of it's still there when you get up the following year or the following decade. Some of that same tension is there. And that's because your body always wants to protect itself from any kind of perceived threat. And there are ways to help your brain realize that the perceived threat is gone. It is totally safe to relax and release the tension in those muscles. So I mentioned that because I strongly suspect that most people know how important exercise is. Maybe not, know it's important for cardiovascular health, maybe for mental health, which is what we talked about last week. But if you're not doing it, there must be a reason. So fatigue, aches and pains, I think, are top of the list. And there are ways that you're probably not familiar with that can help eliminate that fatigue, eliminate the aches and pains so that you and folks you love can do the exercise that maybe they already want to do but just can't do because of fatigue and pain. So if you know folks like that, I'd love to be able to help them. So last week, it didn't surprise me that I didn't get as many questions about exercise. But it brings to mind the fact that I want to encourage you to please contact me with any questions you have, or if you have family members that you know have certain questions that they're not getting answered by their regular doctor, please contact me. I always encourage you to contact me. Send me an email, Dr. Binkley at BinkleyHealingCenter.com. You can even text me. 805-218-3939 is my cell phone. You can text me anytime or email me anytime. You're never going to bother me because I only check my email a couple of times a day. So you're not going to get an instant response if you email me. And just know also that the ringer on my phone is always off. So if you want to speak to me on the phone, I'm happy to do that too. But the easiest way to do that is to text me and send a message saying, please call me. Happy to do it. But the ringer's always off on my phone because I get just far too many spam texts. But that also makes me available. You can leave a text anytime. You won't bother me. Just know if you want to talk on the phone, leave a message and I'll call you back. So I'd love to hear from you. What do you like about this show? What do you like most about this show? What would you like to hear more of? Is there a health topic or condition that you'd like to hear about, to know more about? If it's something you're interested in, many other people are probably interested as well. So email me, text me, and we'll talk about it on next week's show, or privately. If you have a private question, I can just respond to you directly as well. So there's a great new article that came out in the medical press last week about how the 10,000 daily step goal is debunked by a huge study published in Lancet Public Health. It's a British medical journal. So if you've never heard about it, a lot of people have. The goal, based on research since the 80s in Japan, is to get 10,000 steps a day. People buy Fitbits, smartwatches, pedometers, other devices. You can track your steps every day. And the healthiest goal has always been to get 10,000 steps. So this latest research was published in the British journal Lancet Public Health by Dr. Melody Dean, PhD, Master of Public Health, the University of Sydney, and her colleagues on sample sizes for each outcome ranged from 61,000 to 161,000 for type 2 diabetes and all-cause mortality. And what her main point is, we've always heard it was 10,000 steps a day, unofficial target for decades. And her research has shown that 5,000 to 7,000 steps may be enough to dramatically improve your health. So historically, the difference between 10,000 steps and 7,000 steps did show as substantially lower risks for all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, cancer mortality, dementia, and depression. But the difference in all of those things between getting 7,000 steps a day and 10,000 steps a day was very small. And for many of them, there was no statistical difference at all between 7,000 and 10,000 steps. So they performed a systematic review, pooling 57 studies on daily steps and health outcomes. They used 31 studies. Sample sizes ranged from 61,000 to 161,000 for various conditions, and compared with only 2,000 steps a day. First of all, it's important to know there's other research that shows that the average American gets about 5,000 steps a day. If you're not just getting out of bed, getting in your car, sitting at a desk all day, and then reversing the process when you get home. If you're up and about doing any what most people consider normal daily activities, a lot of Americans get about 5,000 steps a day in, and that's about 2.5 miles of walking. 10,000 steps is about 5 miles, so 5,000 steps is about 2.5 miles of walking, and every step counts. So pretty much everyone is getting more than 2,000 steps. So this is what her data showed. Compared with 2,000 steps a day, walking 7,000 steps a day, not 10,000, but 7,000 steps a day compared to only 2,000, was associated with a 47% lower risk of all causes of death, 25% lower risk of cardiovascular disease, 47% lower risk of cardiovascular disease mortality, dying from a heart attack or a stroke, 37% lower risk of cancer mortality, 14% lower risk of type 2 diabetes, 38% lower risk of dementia. Very important to keep your brain health, to exercise, to keep the blood flowing to your brain. 22% lower risk of depressive symptoms and 28% lower risk of falls. Well, this is really exciting news because a lot of people think, oh my God, 10,000 steps. I tried it. Get a pedometer, you get a smartwatch, you get a Fitbit, check your steps, and you're not anywhere near 10,000 steps. Some people think, well, why bother then? I have to get the 10,000 steps or I'll just do my normal daily routine. Well, every step counts. That's the takeaway, most important thing to remember to know about this if you don't know it already. Every step counts. So if you increase it even slightly, it's worth doing. And especially if you can target a goal of 7,000 steps a day, which is for many people going to be much easier to achieve. Just achieving 7,000 steps a day dramatically improves so many health outcomes from all causes of death, cardiovascular disease, cancer mortality, type 2 diabetes, dementia is a big one, and lower risk of depression and falling. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley. You're listening to Safe, Effective, Natural Solutions to Almost Any Health Challenge. Here's an exciting study about demonstrating the benefits of exercise for reducing your risk and improving survival outcomes for colon cancer. It's a challenge study published in the American Society of Clinical Oncology, and then simultaneously in the New England Journal of Medicine. The authors of this study were very excited about it, and I think for good reason, because a modest structured exercise program improved survival outcomes in patients who had gone through chemotherapy for colon cancer. It was conducted at 55 sites, predominantly in Canada and Australia, 889 patients who had undergone surgical removal of stage 3 or high-risk stage 2 colon cancer, and all of these patients had completed chemotherapy within the past 2 to 6 months. So the phase 3 trial showed a 28% reduced risk of disease recurrence or death. These findings were reported by Dr. Christopher Booth, Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And 5-year survival rate is a common metric for cancer studies, but beyond that, the study's results showed a substantial overall survival benefit with the exercise group as well, with an 8-year overall survival of 90.3% in the exercise group. So Dr. Booth summarized these findings during a briefing at the American Society of Clinical Oncology as follows. The challenge trial sets a new standard of care for colon cancer. It's a program of structured exercise after surgery and adjuvant chemotherapy, which meaningfully improves fitness, disease-free survival, and overall survival. Well, this is huge because it's basically a first-in-class anti-cancer effect for a new form of cancer therapy, the benefit of which is so substantial that it's comparable and in some cases exceeds the magnitude of benefit from standard medical therapies in oncology. Well, this is an oncologist talking to a group of other oncologists at an annual meeting saying that exercise is as good as and even better than standard medical therapies in oncology, which are chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. So that's profound. Dr. Pamela Kuntz of Yale School of Medicine in New Haven at this conference was quoted as saying, this is the first randomized phase 3 trial in patients with high-risk colon cancer to demonstrate that post-treatment exercise is actually doable, that patients were able to do this where so many cancer patients can't for various reasons. It was not only doable, but achievable and effective in improving disease-free survival. So that's exciting, and it's important to point out, now that she's mentioning that why is it so difficult? Well, if you're going through chemotherapy and radiation, you're miserable. In addition to nausea and all the other side effects, fatigue is just huge. A lot of people are too fatigued to exercise when they're not undergoing chemotherapy and radiation, recovering from surgery, going through any kind of cancer treatment. So the fact that they demonstrated that this could work in people with advanced cancer undergoing standard cancer therapies is really exciting. And for those who are fatigued and overwhelmed and finding it very difficult to do any form of exercise, please have them contact me, because there are ways to get your body to a point where you can move your body enough to make a substantial difference. And far too many people don't know how to do that. They know it's important, but they haven't figured out a way that works for them. Everybody's different. People need a little support for something like this. there are ways that someone you love, somebody out there who could benefit from moving their body a little bit more and just hasn't figured out a way to make it easy, make it, not such a Herculean effort to get out and move. I had a man in his 70s come in a few weeks ago that was struggling, starting to get some earlier signs of Parkinson's, having difficulty standing up from a seated position and walking. But he went to a neurologist and did a full workup, and he does not have Parkinson's. He does have a lot of stiff muscles throughout his body and some weaknesses. So I showed him how to do some simple stretches that are easy for anyone to do to loosen up and eliminate some of that tension in the muscles that prevents you. A lot of times you feel like a muscle just gets stuck, you're stopped. And that's often because of stiffness that you're not even aware of, but your body becomes aware of it when suddenly it's just finally the final straw is muscles are so tight that if you do a specific motion, it triggers a dramatic response, so dramatic that your body thinks you're about to tear some tissue, you're about to injure yourself, and it just stops you. So there are ways to identify those problems, do some simple stretches. That's what I did with this man. So I showed him how to do some stretches for his hamstrings and his calf muscles, and I did some stretches on the table with his hip rotator muscles, very common problem, very commonly overlooked problem. And then I showed him how to do some simple squatting exercises by holding onto a bar. If you imagine holding on to a ballet bar or a stair rail, people that don't have a bar like that in their house, which is most people, I just recommend that they hold on to the edge of their kitchen sink and do some very simple squatting exercises, not bending the knees beyond 90 degrees, and most importantly, going down slowly, and even more importantly, coming up very slowly. So just with your own body weight for somebody who's a little bit older and having weak muscles in their legs, doing simple squats, squatting down very slowly, and even more importantly, coming back up very slowly is a gentle, effective way to increase strength. And it's flooding your brain with feedback from those muscles and from those nerves that control those muscles, which will indirectly reduce your risk of falling, have better balance, and reduce the risk of falls. In other news, here's a catchy headline. This diet pattern is linked with worse survival in colon cancer. So this is published in JAMA Oncology. Greater intake of pro-inflammatory foods was associated with worse overall survival in patients with stage 3 colon cancer. So the way they measured this is there's an EDIP score, empirical dietary inflammation pattern score. Say that 3 times fast. Basically, it's just a questionnaire to study what people are eating, and specifically a short list of 18 specific food groups which correlate with increased plasma levels of C-reactive protein, IL-6, and TNF-alpha, which are all blood tests that measure systemic inflammation in your body. So certain foods cause inflammation in your body in ways that can actually be measured on blood tests with tests like CRP, IL-6, and TNF-alpha. These are measures for systemic inflammation throughout your body. IL-6 and TNF-alpha are cytokines. If you ever heard about the cytokine storm that happened during COVID when people got overwhelmed with cytokine production, chronic inflammation, that was a common cause of death in COVID. So anyway, this was validated in several large cohorts. Pro-inflammatory foods include red and processed meats, refined grains, and anti-inflammatory foods, to do the opposite, have the opposite effect, include leafy greens, dark yellow vegetables such as carrots and sweet potatoes. They also measured coffee, tea, and wine, which actually had anti-inflammatory benefits. So these findings build upon a number of other studies linking inflammation and colon cancer. And these 2 cohort studies showed that diets high in pro-inflammatory foods conferred a much greater risk of developing colorectal cancer. The takeaway is avoid processed meats like ham and salami and other processed meats that you buy in the deli section of the supermarket, especially if they have nitrates in them. If you love those foods, as I do, I love ham. I love certain salamis. I eat it in small amounts. And you can get them without nitrates. Trader Joe's, some health food stores have products, and if it's what you're looking for, they will prominently advertise that on the label. No added nitrates or nitrites. These are one of the main preservative chemicals added to these processed meats that are hugely a part of why they confer an increased risk of colon cancer. And also eat more greens. Eat a big salad every day. My favorite recommendation is a lot of people don't eat enough for lunch. A lot of people skip lunch if they're working in a 9-to-5 job and they eat their biggest meal at night. Dinner is the largest meal for most people. It's just part of our culture. But we don't need a lot of food to sleep. It's much better to eat your biggest meal in the middle of the day, at lunch. And an easy way to get, and some people say, well, I like to eat salads, but you also have to have something with that. Well, you can make a salad that is filling. Here's how you do it. Make a salad for 4 people with some good protein in it. Chicken, fish, nuts, seeds, whatever kind of protein you like. Make a salad for 4 people and then eat the whole thing yourself. So that's what a lot of people don't do. They like salads maybe, but they just think of it as a side dish. They don't eat enough. They don't eat a big enough salad. So eat a huge salad. And if you don't know how to make, if that sounds disgusting or unpalatable to you, email me and I will send you some recipes for my favorite salads. It's not that difficult to make really, really delicious salads, better than you can get, or at least as good as you can get in some high-end restaurants that might be more healthy for you and still delicious with a few simple tips. One of the most important of which is don't put salad dressing from a bottle or a jar and pour it on top of a bunch of dry leaves. Ugh. First step in a great salad, in my humble opinion, is to get a big bowl, like one of these big stainless steel bowls like you see in restaurants. Put your greens in there, your spinach, your mixed greens, whatever kind of greens you're going to, kale, whatever kind of greens you're going to use as the base of your salad. And first, put a little salt and pepper and some olive oil and either lemon juice or balsamic vinegar, and then toss all of that first. So you evenly coat all of the greens with a nice layer of salt and pepper and acid and delicious, healthy olive oil. And then whatever else you're going to put in the salad, put that on top, and then don't toss it because all that stuff will end up on the bottom of the salad. The most important thing is jar salad dressings, bottled salad dressings are usually not very good for you at all. And they're just not as tasty as making a good vinaigrette, tossing your greens in that first, and then putting everything else on top, and then maybe adding a little extra vinaigrette on top of that. It can also be nice if you like tomatoes on your salad. One of my favorite things is to chop up a couple of tomatoes, put them in a bowl with some Kalamata olives and some fresh chopped garlic and some fresh chopped shallots, a little salt and pepper, a little herbe de Provence, and the same vinaigrette, olive oil, and some balsamic vinegar. Sometimes I'll chop a whole avocado into that and then toss that in a little bowl and then add that to the top of the salad later. And then if you're not a vegan or a vegetarian, you want to put some animal protein on it, chicken or salmon. You can get, if you don't have time to broil a piece of salmon, that's a delicious thing to add to any salad. Anything, for example, anything you think of that you would normally have on a sandwich, you can put on a salad. You can put any type of meat that you would normally eat as a sandwich on a bed of mixed greens with a vinaigrette and have that as a salad. For example, I like to make lemon chicken. I'll take some leftover breast of chicken from a roasted chicken, chop it up in little chunks and put it in a bowl and squeeze the better part of a whole lemon on it. Soak it in fresh squeezed lemon juice, salt and pepper, a little herbe de Provence. I just did this yesterday with a delicious jalapeno olive oil. And it was to die for. And then, you stir that up a little bit, let it soak for a little bit before you eat it. You can make lemon chicken. Sometimes I'll also take some chunked chicken breast, and add a little bit of oil and lemon and a fair amount of Dijon mustard. Dijon mustard, you can get a couple of different kinds, the yellow creamy kind. I buy these at Trader Joe's, and they have a chunky kind with just the whole seeds in it for even better flavor. So the couple of different types of Dijon mustard and cranberries. So oil, a little bit of lemon, Dijon mustard, and cranberries to chunked chicken is a nice, delicious protein to add to the center of your salad. We're about to run out of time here. Do you have a favorite healthy, delicious salad that you wouldn't mind sharing with the listeners to this show? Please send it to me, and I'll take a look at it. I'd love to know your favorite salad and what you like about it, and any other questions you have regarding any health topic, please email me or text me. As always, thank you for listening. See if you can find a way to get out and move your body and make this week healthier than last week. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley. If you have a health question you want discussed on the show, email your health questions to Dr. Binkley at binkleyhealingcenter.com. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions for yourself and for your loved ones, because our health matters. Join him next Friday at 2 p.m. for safe, effective natural solutions here on 98.3 FM, The Word.